Welcome to Math Bytes. I'm Allison. Today, we're talking about using the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula finds the zeros of a quadratic equation using just the coefficients of that equation. Even if your quadratic equation will factor, or if it can be solved algebraically, you can still solve it using the quadratic formula if you want to. Just a reminder, when we have an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then the quadratic formula says x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so here are your steps. Identify the coefficients a, b, and c. Plug them into the quadratic formula. Then simplify. That's it. You want to know a really good way to make a mistake? Is skip these steps and get ahead of yourself. Using the quadratic formula isn't really terribly complicated, but you do need to proceed carefully. Let's go further with this with a couple of examples. Let's look at our first example. We have 2x squared minus 5x minus 7 equals 0. The first thing I'm going to do is identify the coefficients, a, b, and c. They are a is equal to 2, b is equal to -5, and c is equal to -7. If you're at all confused about how I arrived at those values for the coefficients, then watch our video on determining the coefficients of a quadratic equation. All right, I'm going to plug these coefficients into the quadratic formula and then just simplify one step at a time. All right, x equals the opposite of b. In this case, b is -5, so take the opposite sign. So I get 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared, -5 squared, minus 4ac. So in this case, that's 4 times 2 times -7, all over 2a, which in this case is 2 times 2. A is 2 here. Okay, let's simplify. This is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of -5 squared is 25, minus 4 times 2 is 8, times -7 is -56. So now under my square root symbol, I have 25 minus -56. And that's all over 2 times 2, which is 4. I'm just going to focus on simplifying what's under that square root symbol. So I get 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus -56 is 81. And that's still all over 4. Okay, still looking at what's under that square root symbol. Can I simplify or rewrite 81 in some way to simplify that square root? Why, yes, I can. 81 is a perfect square. It's 9 squared. So I can rewrite this as 5 plus or minus the square root of 9 squared all over 4. The square root of 9 squared is just 9. If you're confused about that step, you can check out our video on simplifying square root expressions. So I have 5 plus or minus 9 over 4. Okay, we're almost there. I have to consider both the plus 9 and the minus 9. So I get two options here. I either have 5 plus 9 over 4 or 5 minus 9 over 4. 5 plus 9 is 14, so I have 14 over 4. And 5 minus 9 is -4, so I have -4 over 4. Simplifying, I have 7 over 2 or -1. That means if you plug 7 over 2 or -1 into our original quadratic equation, you will get 0. Let's take a look at our second example. We have x squared plus 4x plus 2 equals 0. The first thing I'm going to do is identify my coefficients. Now, don't forget, there's a 1 in front of that x squared, so a is equal to 1, b is equal to 4, and c is equal to 2. Let's plug them into the formula. X equals the opposite of b. In this case, b is 4, so take the opposite sign, -4. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's 4 squared, minus 4ac, in this case, that's 4 times 1 times 2, all over 2a, which in this case is 2 times 1. Let's do some simplifying. This is equal to -4, plus or minus the square root of 4 squared is 16, minus 4 times 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, so 16 minus 8. And that's all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, continuing to simplify, we have that this is equal to -4 plus or minus the square root of 8 over 2. Can I simplify the square root of 8? It's not a perfect square, but I can write it as the product of a perfect square and another number. So I get -4 plus or minus the square root of 4 times 2 all over 2. I'm going to rewrite that 4 under the square root symbol as 2 squared. So I get -4 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared times 2 all over 2. Okay, the square root of 2 squared is just 2. Those two things cancel each other out. So I get -4 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 2 all over 2. Okay, that 2 on the bottom, I can cancel that out with the numbers in the numerator. -4 over 2 is -2. Plus or minus 2 over 2 is just 1. That leaves me with the square root of 2. So my zeros here are -2 plus or minus the square root of 2. I know there's a lot of steps when you use the quadratic formula. Most of it, though, is really just arithmetic. Once you identify the coefficients and plug them into the formula, you just have to go through the process of simplifying. And if you try to simplify too much in one step and skip ahead, that's when mistakes are made. So just plug through it, take your time, and you'll get there. It's a good way to teach yourself patience. That's it for this episode of Math Bytes. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel. And if there's a topic you'd like us to talk about, just send us an email. We're at contactmathbytes@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time.